Going to see the counsellor is probably the single most valuable thing I've ever done in my life.
I'm really interested to hear about the help that you had from Bidwells. Could you give me a little bit of background?
I had a challenging time a few years ago.
I really wasn't very happy in my relationship.
So I was diagnosed with postnatal depression, post-traumatic stress disorder in 2016 after a very traumatic pregnancy.
I didn't feel quite right and comfortable in the workplace, and it meant that I wasn't sleeping well, I wasn't performing well.
Hi, my name's Rebecca Watts and I head up the BWell programme at Bidwells. I'm here today at Maggie's with my dog Sifka. Maggie's is an incredible resource for anyone whose family or loved ones or friends have been affected by cancer. You're going to see your friends and colleagues today sitting on the sofa with Sifka and I, sharing their stories. Mental health is such an important topic, and we are going to show you today how important it is to begin the conversation.
I felt like I was basing a lot of expectations on like friendships and relationships from things that I was seeing online. And actually I sort of stepped away from it and thought that's not normal for me to be having these like idealistic views of what I should be doing and all of that based on other people's lives. And I must admit, a lot of it was the pressure that I put on myself because I was actively going on these sites and sort of looking at it, and I knew what it was sort of doing to my state of mind. I knew that anything that I was doing was never going to compare to what lives these people were living.
My first round of CBT therapy kind of focused on why I was worrying so much and being anxious, and it all stemmed from one bad relationship, should I say. With my previous relationship, he controlled how I looked, and I was too fat or was too thin or had to exercise certain amounts of times in the week. I didn't realise this until after the relationship. And then when I was and when I was in the relationship I am in now, I realised what a relationship should be like.
I found myself being concerned about how I was performing and how I was being perceived within the business. It affected my home life, it put stress on my relationship at home. I didn't have as much enjoyment with my children, and they could see that, and it became quite burdensome and overpowering.
I think it was probably about a year and a half ago now where I realised that I really wasn't very happy in my relationship. And I had this sort of moment on Christmas Eve. I realised I didn't want to go home and I didn't want to be in the house any longer. I was already finding I was staying later and later at work, and there's always things to do and it's busy, but I think really deep down it was because I didn't want to go home. But I had this sort of moment of clarity. I thought, I've had enough and I can't do this anymore.
I had my waters broke at 20 weeks. So we had a very stressful time not knowing whether the baby was going to survive or not. He then arrived at 34 weeks because I contracted sepsis. So he was delivered by general anaesthetic and then spent 10 days in neonatal. Came back to work after a year. I had a very supportive boss who knew what had happened. But it was quite clear after about 4 or 5 months that I wasn't coping. As is classic, I think, with every new parent, you think you're fine and that everything's okay, but really wasn't.
Your mum's one of your hardest things that I've seen you go through and still go through.
Yeah. I went in to see her and I thought she had, my mum had diabetes, so I thought she was having a diabetic attack. So I made her eat a banana. I made my mum eat a banana about 5 minutes before she had a massive heart attack on the driveway in the ambulance. It was the day before my birthday, and we made it to Papworth, and I didn't realise that I should have let her go. So she had 5 heart attacks, and I was on my knees praying that she would live so selfishly because it was my birthday the next day and I didn't want my mum to die on my birthday. My mum died in Papworth Hospital. I'd had a really, moving, and we'd kissed and hugged and told each other how much we loved each other the night before, but I wasn't there and I missed it. And on the way to the hospital, I felt this an overwhelming sense of love. And then when we got to Papworth, it turned out that that feeling I'd had, this overwhelming, this just full of love, was the time that she passed.
The stresses are probably a bit blind. You don't necessarily know that they're there until you're finding things are compounding. But having a good team around you and having support from your line manager and your colleagues in the office is really important.
It was actually work that suggested that I go and see a psychologist.
I had a challenging time a few years ago with my relationship. I was able to go in and seek some advice from a counsellor, and actually we both went along, and that was invaluable. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm very open with my feelings. Having to express that to a complete stranger is quite difficult, and it was really beneficial. It was really good to be able to talk to a neutral person.
I definitely think for me, getting rid of my social media accounts has been a game changer because it's given me a lot more focus at work. Obviously coming from a younger generation, I do think my friends and people that I'm around sort of outside of work, it is more accepted to talk about mental health. But I have noticed actually that a lot of my friends that I've been friends with for a while have struggled at points throughout their life, and it's always nice to have someone to confide in and to talk to and to sort of resolve problems. And it does reinforce that, you know, it's okay like not to feel okay all the time or not to know how you're feeling.
I think when I went to counselling, I thought they were going to tell me what to do because I'd never been before, and actually they don't tell you what to do at all, but they help you sort of know your own thoughts.
When I was first going through it, I said I feel like I'm weak and like I've let
Really?
people down, yeah, because I'm always seen as the strong one. So when I went through my breakup, they always said to me, "Oh, you're amazing, you're so strong," and this, that and the other, but inside I was literally breaking.
So that was a mask.
Yeah, basically.
I was very reluctant to speak to anybody. I'm very much the kind of person who nothing was going to change what happened. I couldn't go back and not have a horrible pregnancy or a horrible delivery. Nothing, talking about it wasn't going to change anything, so what was the point? I couldn't actually be more wrong. And I remember the psychologist saying to me, probably in the second, third time I saw her, she said that it's not a case of changing what's happened. You can't change what's happened, but what you have to do is learn to live with it.
I was sceptical, to say the least, but the first session just completely opened my eyes. It dragged up things that I wasn't really thinking about, which weren't related to work. It related to a piece of bullying a long time ago where I was put into a situation where I had to confront somebody that was bullying me. And there was a big crowd of people and it was basically going to be a fight. And I was in my mid-teens and it wasn't me. It's just completely not me, but I got forced into that situation. And I actually didn't engage with it and ran away. That led to more issues because of the people's perception of me. That situation, I actually did the right thing. And now everybody's standing around in that circle. If they reflected on it as adults now, recognise that it was the right thing to do.
I was spending an awful lot of time on my own at home, and it was a really dark period. It sounds a bit cliched, but my job kind of saved me. It came at the right time. Can you remind me and just reiterate what we've got available at Bidwells to support our people?
Yeah, we have our EAP, our Employee Assistance Programme, where you can get counselling sessions face-to-face. They're 24 hours a day, so you can have something at night by the telephone. You can also get more counselling sessions through our AXA cover. We can also provide signposting and information on our BWell hub. If you don't want to speak to somebody, but you know you want to reach out, you can use thymometrics. So you could actually put a message in there. It's obviously confidential. So you could say, hey, I'm struggling, don't know what to do, and somebody can respond. We obviously have our mental health first aiders in all the offices, and we have our HR business partners who are also being trained in many different areas, including domestic abuse. Great ears to listen to things. So yeah, if anybody did need anything, I think we're covered anonymously or face-to-face, however anybody wants to respond or get help, I think we can cover people.
If someone was watching this and was having difficulties, would you recommend using some of the services that we've got available
without a shadow of a doubt. I think there is no harm at all in at least seeing what they can do, how they can help.
If we really want to drill home the message of mental health, then, you know, when we raised money for Maggie's as an Oxford team, we went and spent and visited time with all the centres, and it just sort of gravitas to that message. And, you know, if we're raising awareness for mental health, and I'm more attuned to it now because sadly I've had a colleague who took his own life.
How do you see Bidwells now then, with the BWell movement and what we're doing now?
We are a people business, we talk team, and if we're a real team, that means we've got to be able to talk to each other. And that, you know, that to me is a sign of a strong team. Don't be afraid to talk. People will understand. They won't have the answers. But if we can sort of help take some pressure off, give some relief, then that's good for you, but it's good for the team as well.
Still, I think it's going to be a battle for the rest of your life. If you suffer with something like that, it's always going to be a battle for the rest of your life, but it's knowing how to deal with it and seeking that help.
Everything that's happened to me, I genuinely think has only made me a better version of myself.
So you've heard your colleagues share our journeys, our personal stories. You've heard about tragedy and love and loss. We are in an enormously privileged position to have the resources available to us. Please take away that it is okay not to be okay, that you can put your hand up and that we will catch you. Ultimately, we just want you to bring your whole selves to work.